Hi, guys, and welcome back to A Millennial Minds. Today, I'm so excited to welcome two guests I've been meaning to speak to for a really long time. So, hi, Rahul. Hi, Sushank. How are you?
Good, thanks. How
Hi,
are
how are
you?
you?
Good, thank you. And thank you so much for coming on this podcast. So, what I want to talk to you two about today is the Indian expectation on sexuality. And so, can you just give people a little bit of an introduction as to how you guys met and your backgrounds?
Yeah, Hi, my name is Rahul. I am from the UK, based in London, and I work as a senior procurement officer for the humanitarian department, so for the UK government. Do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Sushank. I'm originally from New York, but had come to London to do cancer research, and that's how I met Rahul.
So
Amazing.
we
So, you guys met
actually
through work.
no, so we actually met on Tinder.
Nice.
So yeah, online dating does work successfully sometimes. So Sashank used to live on East London area, and I live in Northwest London area. And we matched, and then started talking, and then about a month later we met up. And yeah, and the rest is just history, I guess.
Amazing. So, what I want to talk to you both about today is, like I said, the Indian expectation on sexuality. Now, I think this is from my opinion, I think within the Indian community, there is an expectation that everybody is and should be heterosexual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people say that they're bi or gay or anything else that's not heterosexual, people kind of like find it a bit of a shock.
Hmm.
So, what was your experience with that growing up?
I personally, for myself, I totally agree. Kind of the norm in the UK, a lot is kind of, you know, you go to school, you get married, you have
Hmm.
kids,
Hmm.
you look after your kids, you look after your parents when they're older. Like that's kind of the norm set out for your life.
Yeah.
And anything going outside of that, like if you don't go to university, or they're Indian, they haven't gone to university, or if you
Mhm.
kind of go out of one of those kind of typical lifestyles, it's a bit frowned upon. I think
Yes.
now it's a bit more accepting, as the kind of 21st century, but
Hmm.
definitely that was the norm of living that kind of normal lifestyle.
And when you say accepting, I think some people, loads of things I've experienced where people will say, "Yeah, I would accept it, but it would be a shock to me at first."
Yeah.
And so, things like saying those statements, it's like, what shocks you? What exactly are you feeling afraid of, or what's different about this? So, talking about both of your experiences growing up, when did you both realize that actually I'm not attracted to women?
Um, Personally, I knew from my childhood,
Okay.
but I was always like not ignorant towards it, but I was unaccepting towards it, and I kept on saying, "Oh, like it's something in my head, or something like that I shouldn't be exposed to."
Mm-hmm.
And having a twin sister, like only being 2 minutes apart, we didn't have any gender norms in our household. So whatever
Okay.
I did as a boy, she did as a girl. Whatever she did as a girl, I did as a boy. So in that aspect, like we didn't have any like expectations what
Yeah.
it means to be for a boy or what it means to be for a girl. However, that conception of sexuality was still like expected. Like her being a girl, she should get married to a guy, and me being a guy, I should get married to a girl.
Yes.
So having that awareness from an early point in childhood, I always thought, oh, if I maybe experience these things or open my mind to them, it will not only bring shame on the family, but also
Mm.
maybe will bring hindrance to my sister getting married. So I was just like,
Wow.
so I was just like not honest to myself and accepting about it. But I guess moving to London and being away from family and like being independent in all aspects kind of really teaches you to love yourself and accept
Yes.
yourself. And once I had that inner acceptance and inner love, I was able to come out and just like share my story with family and friends. I think it was difficult talking to my dad about it. Like my sister was the first person I told,
Okay.
and it was she knew from the beginning. She said she always knew I was gay. She didn't want to have the conversation unless I was ready for it, and that she kind of
Mm.
supports me. And then that gave me like the confidence and I guess the strength to talk to my dad. And I told my dad I need to talk to him if he should come into my room. And then I I kept on like stuttering. I'm like, Dad, I am. 1 minute passed, and so on
Mm,
10 minutes. And my sister was like, Dad, he's gay. And my dad just like became quiet, and it was only like for a few minutes, but it felt so
mhm.
long. And then
Yeah.
he just said, Listen, you're my son. I love you no matter what. It doesn't change anything. The only
Mhm.
thing I will say is your sexuality is your own personal matter. You don't need to tell it to everybody. Like you told us, and that's enough, and
Mhm.
that's all there is to it, and that's it.
Wow. So you touched on like a few things there, which I think people who are listening and watching this who perhaps aren't from the Indian community or, perhaps aren't aware of these things, you said, you didn't want to say it when you were younger because you didn't want to stop your sister getting married. Now, that's a typical thing that happens within the Indian community because people, when you feel shame or, people are portraying things as certain things as shameful, they say, well, you can't marry that family, you can't be friends with that person, or you can't be family friends with that person. And then another thing you said as well was, how your sister knew but didn't want to tell you. And we also have this within the Indian community where we're not confrontational. We're scared to talk about difficult things or scared to talk about hard topics. Rahul, did you have the same kind of challenges or, difficulties when telling your family?
Yes and no. I am a bit more different to Sushan. I didn't really think about, my sister might not get married to someone. I didn't really think about that aspect. I was like, this is
Yeah.
my life. I'm going to live it how I want to, kind of thing. It was selfish. But definitely I was the same as Sushan. My sister knew before I even told her. She was like,
Okay.
I knew from a very young age. But my experience was slightly different. My experience more was from high school, so about 13, 14-ish, kind of not being bullied at school, but kind of being
Mm,
called names at school. Um, and I think over a couple of years of being called certain names, that kind of then sticks with you, and you think, oh, maybe, because prior to that, I didn't even know anything about it. And so and then at university is kind of, I think, when you really kind of meet other people that are not from your local area and kind of, you actually
yeah.
expand on your horizon, which is what really kind of opened me to the wider world, I guess, as they say.
Hmm.
But yeah, so and then after university, kind of being exposed to more people and kind of being exposed to more cultures, maybe actually realize kind of, yes, I think I knew it from a longer period of time, but actually accepting it was later on.
Yeah.
My sister was the first person I told, and she was like, I knew from day one. So,
Wow.
I'm happy for you, and I'm always here. Um, and then yeah, and then that was kind of it. And then I think when I was about 23, I came out. Well, my sister told my mum, and my mum then asked me one day randomly when we were just having dinner, and I just said yes because I was a bit tired of, I guess, lying.
Yes.
I said yes, and she found it quite difficult initially.
Hmm.
She was, I think, one of her main things she said was, "What about society?" And I think that's a very typical Indian thing to say. What about society and thinking about everyone else? Um, she did take a good 6 months to kind of understand. And one of my cousins that I'm really close with, that I already told as well, was her kind of support system there.
Okay.
And then a couple of months later, my dad had came back from India, and my mum just kind of put it on the dining table that this is what's happened, and I'm like, okay. And my dad's words were, "If you're happy, I'm happy for you," which was a very big shock.
Wow.
I thought it would be the other way around. I was totally expecting it the other way around, but um, yeah. So
This
that
is
was a
such.
good 6, 7 years ago that happened.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Both of your stories are so amazing and so different. But what's really similar about both your stories is neither of you told your parents. It was a sibling that had to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm that role for my brother who'll be like, can you tell mum and dad this? Or, I'll tell my mum first, who will then tell my dad. It's never like, an open conversation. Well, we're slowly kind of trying to get to that now. But generally, when I was younger, everything would be like, okay, mum, will you tell dad that I'm doing this? And
Yeah.
I think that's so common within an Indian household is we don't really have open conversations Well, yours sounds quite open actually, because you just said it on a dining table. Mine would be like an email being sent and then reviewing the email, and then, then having maybe a conversation where everyone's looking in different directions because nobody wants to confront the issue. But wow, that's really interesting, and you brought up some points about, society and what other people would say. And I guess that's a really common question within every Indian household when you raise anything is, what are people going to say? And
Yeah.
that seems to be the first point of, concern. From your experiences, why do you think within the Indian community we have these expectations?
I personally think it's a lot due to social norms, like
Hmm.
because especially in the Indian community, like even in today's day and age, um, the gender roles are very stereotypical, and that has not
Yeah.
changed. And I feel like that has a lot to again attach with sexuality because you're not used to seeing men and women between like a man can be
Yeah.
emotional and a woman can be aggressive because that is something that it should not be. Hence, those characteristics per se, whether you are like heterosexual or homosexual, get looked in a negative manner. So when people say
Hmm.
change of that, like personality wise, and then somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm not a typical uh, guy because I like boys," and they see like maybe a more feminine side to you, they automatically
Yeah.
associate those two things together. And for them, it's like,
Definitely.
okay, um, we are not accepting it because a you don't fall in that category, but also in terms of
Hmm.
your nature, you deflect from that norm. Hence, it's gonna make people be aware of it. People can point you out, and therefore, like bring negativity to the family or etc. So I think that's one of the
Hmm.
main reasons. And I think the other thing is I wouldn't say lack of education, but I would say not being well informed. Because like no Indian
Yeah.
especially, like anything they hear and see, that's the truth. You know? Perfect example, WhatsApp groups. Someone says something, it's get forwarded, that becomes fake news because they see it in a group and because it's being shared from people close to them, that's the first thing they will look at because it automatically draws an emotional attachment because someone else sent it and that becomes the truth. And then I think lastly, it is a fear of change. I think a lot
Yes.
of Indians, like within India or globally, are afraid of change because we're so used to having structure in the household in all
Yeah.
aspects. Parents do this, kids do that, and that cycle, like, just continues when you move on and stuff like that. So I think for me, these three reasons are why they have that mentality that heterosexuality should be the standard and nothing else.
That's so insightful. Rahul, do you have anything?
No, I totally agree with Sushan. Yeah, like a kind of lack of knowledge or lack of like understanding and awareness is a really big thing. I think it's getting better, but it's still not there yet. And I think that's one of the main reasons why kind of people are so oblivious to kind of outside the norm. Anything that happens outside the norm,
Definitely.
sexuality or non-sexuality related, people are just so oblivious to it. And yeah, I think that's kind of a
Definitely.
massive area there that we need to improve on.
I like the way you say that you think it's getting better, because I definitely think it is that people feel more
Mm,
comfortable to say, okay, I'm gay, I'm bi, but there is still a massive expectation around it because people's natural reaction is like a shock
100%.
or, oh my
Yeah,
gosh. It's never like, okay,
yeah,
cool. It's not seen to be something that people wouldn't question,
agree.
you know. So we've had somebody in our community that got married, and they were the first gay couple within our community to get married, and people's reactions were like they were mixed. Some people were like, wow, this is amazing. Some people were like, oh my god, what's going on? And
Mm,
then, but everyone's reaction first was, oh my gosh. It wasn't like when, I don't know, random girl and boy get married that everyone's just like, no one cares, to be
Yeah.
honest. It was a kind of a bit of a shock, and it was like, have you heard about this? Have you seen this? And perhaps the latter reactions weren't so negative. Probably wasn't like, oh my god, this is so wrong, or whatever people say.
Yeah.
mm,
But there was this sudden shock that, wow, this is happening and this is becoming normalized and people
yeah,
are talking about this. So
Yeah.
it definitely is changing, and I'm seeing more of it now. But growing up, wasn't exposed to anybody who was gay. I didn't have any
100%
friends
same.
that were. I didn't know anyone in my family that was. I didn't know any of my family friends that were. And I would still say now I don't have that many friends, or I don't know anybody within my family that is, because I think it's really sad that some people feel like they can't come out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they feel pressure by the community, by what their parents would say, all the things we've already talked about, that they feel if I come out, I'm going to bring shame to my family, or I'm going to,
Absolutely.
cause harm, or I'm going to cause pain to them. And that's not what they want. Can we talk a little bit about why this is so toxic to hide your sexual identity?
I think there's multiple layers here. One layer is people are actually or some people our generation are not as scared to hide it. However, our parents' generation is scareder to hide it, I would say.
Hmm.
So, for example, one of my cousins is he's gay. He got married to a guy. They had like a whole Indian wedding and everything. But his dad hid it from all his cousins, like from the whole
Wow.
community, basically. Whereas his mom was very open and loud about it, where his dad was very hidden. So like none of his dad's brothers or sisters came to the wedding, no one. Only
Oh
his
my
like the
God.
groom's cousin came to the wedding. So my cousin's cousins came to the wedding, but none of
Oh
his
my
aunties and uncles
gosh.
came, just because his dad was not open about it. And still, 3 years later, he still has not told anyone about it. Obviously, everyone knows through talk, but I think yes, our generation are scared, but our parent generation are even scared, and hiding it just doesn't help the situation at all. I think, which is something that it's very hard for them because it's
Hmm.
very new and very not the norm at all. Whereas we're more exposed to other cultures that are more open and accepting about it. But it is
Hmm.
something that we need to work towards to kind of help, help that
Definitely.
process.
I think I would disagree with that in that sense.
Mm,
I think it's not about a generation thing, it's about a mentality
Hmm.
thing. Because I give a perfect example. Rahul's nanny, initially when I was introduced as Rahul's friend. But after our engagement, and also over the time, seeing his nanny on a regular, we ended up becoming very close with one another. So
Hmm.
when my mother-in-law told her about our engagement, like I would never think that she would have the reaction she did. She was like, someone's gender is not as important as someone's character. He has a good character. He's a good person. He's kind, respectful. Like, and I think for me that nothing else matters. And as long as
Hmm.
we both are happy, and that's it. And I would never think that
So
someone like from
nice.
her generation would say
I
such things.
know.
And she instantly made me even more comfortable. Like that I
So
act no
nice.
different when I act in terms of Rahul's parents and
mm,
with him and in front of her. And same thing even with my own grandparents. So I had told everybody about coming out when I came out at 29 in 2017, except my
Hmm.
grandparents, because everybody was like they won't understand. Then
Yes.
eventually, like because of us dating for a long period of time and then being engaged. I think around Diwali in 2019, I had called my nanny to wish her for Diwali, and I don't know what was in me that time because I was with Rahul. I'm like, oh, nanny, just I got engaged, and she was like, yes, Masi told me. I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. So
Oh
I was
wow.
so worried, like about how they would react being from that generation or whatever. But
Hmm.
that one conversation just erased all that, like those negative emotions, and
Yeah.
having such a positive reaction from her just made it so easy. So I feel like like I said earlier, like that fear, I think, is also creates more anxiety and stress within ourselves that we constantly think, oh
Definitely.
my god, oh my god, oh my god, but then it's not as bad as you think because sometimes we just overthink these things and it's not as that bad, I think.
Well, I think it's the people who care about you most really do care about you and your
exactly.
happiness. So, they're not bothered about the external factors of who you love and why you love them and the rest of it. They're just like, are you happy? Rahul, you've talked to me about in school how you were facing a lot of these negative comments. And Shashank, we've spoken as well about the negative comments you're facing from people. It's really nice to hear that you both have such a positive experience with your family. And, some of the things that you've said have really touched me because I don't think everybody goes through the same kind of experiences. But let's talk through actually some of these negative experiences you faced from telling your community or telling some of your friends or some other members of your family and how you overcame them.
Yeah. So I've touchwood, I've been quite lucky. No one's ever said anything to my face
Hmm.
from kind of family or community wise. Yes, when I was younger, that was just teenagers being teenagers, kind of
Hmm.
standard stuff. But when I actually had a bit more tougher skin and actually accepted myself, there was no negative comments or connotations kind of at that point.
Hmm.
The only form of negative kind of comments or any kind of anything received like that would be through social media on certain aspects.
Okay.
Majority of it is positive. Don't get me wrong. Majority of it, we've been very lucky. We've been very positive.
Hmm.
We've been featured on a lot of different pages, kind of on mainly on Instagram, but
Yeah.
a lot of kind of gay social platform pages,
Yeah.
but also recently a lot of kind of Indian wedding pages, so like Indian wedding suppliers or kind of event organizers and stuff like that. So a lot of them, and that's where we've received more of the kind of negative connotation. And it is, I guess, it is with kind of the culture differences. Because a lot of these platforms are kind of obviously based in India or
Yeah.
based in kind of Asian, Eastern countries. Um, so that's where I see kind of most of our negative connotations. For me personally, there's two ways I kind of tackle it.
Hmm.
One is ignore it, or one is try to educate people. Actually, three ways: one to ignore it, one to actually say something back to them.
Yes.
Not all is the nicest thing. I'm very go 0 to 100 very quickly, so I might just say something inappropriate to them, which
In
is
that
not
moment.
nice. Or the third thing is what we try to do the most is educate people. Um, really try to educate them to understand for them to understand our perspective and kind of
Mm.
this new non-norm for them, I guess it is would be classified as,
Mm.
but for them to understand like there is other aspects to kind of the normal standard life that people go through, and it has worked in our benefit. I definitely agree. There's some people that we've have really they're very obviously stick to their views, which is totally fine, but they do try to understand this aspect to it as well, and quite a few people have said like thanks for letting us know or thanks for informing us about this, which is what we really aim to do at the end.
Yes.
Some of them obviously are still kind of this is what we think, this is how we're thinking, which is fine,
Hmm.
that's up to them. But that aspect of educating people is kind of the most raising awareness, yes, through kind of the platforms and the social media, but then educating them is kind of our key area there. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Mm.
I mean, completely. So, like Rahul said, I have been very fortunate as well that in terms of family, I have not received any negative comments. Community, yes, in some aspects,
Hmm.
because my mom is no more in, like, my mom died from cancer 10 years ago. So someone had made a comment, oh, that's what happens when a female is no longer in the household. Kids
Wow.
start acting up. That was that, but like, we don't really pay attention to it because other people's opinion don't matter to us.
Hmm.
Some friends also stopped communicating in the sense that they don't see that comfort
Hmm.
in me expressing my love for the same gender, which is fine because I think, like you said earlier, right, people love you, they support you no matter what, and people don't,
Yes.
and like these little differences come in between, and you just go your like separate ways, which is fine as well. And then like Rahul said, social media, I think for me personally, is the most platform where I have received, whether with him or
Hmm.
like like on my own negative comments, and I have two options dealing with it. One is I ignore it.
Yeah.
Two, I try to educate it, but only I give examples. I only do it when I really see people making like stupid comments, like where it's like where
Okay.
just like just balls your blood pressure. Like a lot of people said, "Oh, gays are spreading COVID, so our sexuality is getting people sick." Another one
It
was,
makes sense,
"Oh,
but that
yeah,
does not make logical
yeah,
sense.
like can you imagine?" And then other some like a lot of and these comments, I'm telling you, we've got these comments like in the thousands for about this topic, right? People actually spend their time writing these things. Another thing was, oh, we are making being gay in fashion, so we should stop like encouraging people because it's not fashionable. Then other people but that's again, like Val said, culture,
Mm.
religion also comes
Yes.
into it. So a lot of people say really mean things like, oh, we what we have for each other, which is only love, is a natural, and it's dirty and disgusting, and and um we should burn in hell and stuff like that, or there's still time to repent, or that Jesus
Oh
loves
my
us,
God.
or people get very personal, and that's
Hmm.
something we both don't tolerate, that kind of behavior when they involve families, right?
Yes.
So we just recently got a feature through Official Humans of Bombay,
Mm-hmm.
and someone was so bickering to a point, that they
Hmm.
involved our families. Like they said, oh, you both should have your parents should have never given birth to you, should have died that right there and then. Or they're like, oh, even better, your parents shouldn't have never been born, because
Oh,
if they wouldn't be there, then you wouldn't be there, right? Or someone said, oh, go kill yourself. Mind you, with COVID right now, everybody is aware of mental health, and how any kind of negativity can impact you, right? And sometimes reading such things, it doesn't get me, I don't take it personally, but
okay.
it does at some point get you upset. We
Of
have to be like, no,
course.
what, I need to take a break from this, because it's like people don't even know us on a personal level, and saying such mean things, it does impact you.
Of
Or
course.
we had Rahul and me got messages with someone, like about 500 people made a group, a hate group and everything, and they were like, oh, you should
About you
die.
two.
Yeah, you should die, kill yourselves, and they kept on messaging us from different accounts. Go
Oh
kill
my
yourself, go kill
God.
yourself, and then say really bad things about families and stuff like that.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's shocking. I did not know that you guys would be facing anything near to that extreme extent, I think. Oh God, I feel a little bit like I don't really know what to say. That's so sad.
Yeah.
How
I
do you cope with that? Because I think, I'm a bit sensitive. So I have like all positive things around me all the time. And like if somebody comments on my video, I mean, I've had like one negative comment being like, I can't believe you interviewed this person. What an idiot you are. And I was a bit like, okay, whatever. And it's from like a fake account. But I'm sure the more I do these videos,
hmm,
I'm going to get more people commenting, saying negative things. But it's not so personal. It's not like go and kill yourself or like you're a moron or, the horrible things that you're saying. It's more just like, oh, this is stupid. So
hmm.
how do you cope with such personal attacks? Because that must be really damaging. And, you're saying that you guys are okay with it, but imagine the people that aren't.
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel really bad for them. There's a lot of people that reached out to us. Personally, me, a lot of people from India have reached out to us saying like, family won't accept us, or like I get all this backlash, I don't know what to do. We obviously try and support them and encourage them as much as we can,
Mm,
from our experience. But our experience living in the Western world is very different to
very
their
different.
experience
yeah,
living in the Eastern world. So as much as we're both Indian or Gujarati, it's still hard to get like understand their full perspective.
yeah,
Um, but with a lot of these comments, it's just a lot of ignore. For me, it's just like people are just not. They just yeah. I just kind of it goes in one ear and comes out the other. A lot of it for me.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm quite different. I'm more similar to you, because I'm very sensitive and very emotional, and
Mm,
for me, it's I think it doesn't bother me because of three reasons. To a point where I let it get invested into my life. One thing, having a good partner, so
mhm.
we share everything with each other. So
Amazing.
if something does get into my skin, we talk it out. Second thing is, for me, is that self love is very important. So I think when you love yourself,
Yeah.
these things don't bother you. Yes, they maybe maybe negative strays coming away, but they get deflected because you're so much in love with yourself that no
Hmm.
one's opinion really matters to you. And lastly, I think it's it's being I think more mature. I'm 32, so I'm not back like a teenager where everything people said wouldn't bother me, because
Hmm.
I am I'm grounded enough to know who I am, and
Yes.
I'm more educated about myself and my surroundings, where I don't let such things impact me no longer. But like Rahul said, it's very difficult. For instance, one person from India reached out to me, and they're early college years, and they share the stuff it goes back to mannerisms, right? They said I'm
Hmm.
quite flamboyant, and I hear that all the time when it comes to my own household. My own cousin makes such negative remarks to me, and I just don't know how to deal with it. So I'm
Yes.
listen, you have to build yourself so strong and love yourself so much that all these things will matter to you. They will pick on you once, they will pick on you twice. But if they see that you're not letting it bother you, they will just stop eventually. But every time they're negative to you, have a reaction, they will continue because, like, it's like power, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm having an impact on them. Let me continue. Like, let me continue more, and then that, like, kind of like bullying becomes
Yes.
more and more extent. But if you act like, I was like, even if it bothers you, just
Mm.
bicker inside, but like to his face, you have no reaction, and that
Yes.
will eventually, like, help help it. So
Hmm.
now the few weeks that we've been interacting, you're like, thank you so much for
It's
your,
so
like,
nice.
for your feedback. It has made a big difference because we get so many messages, like, a
Yeah,
lot, and we do try
Hmm.
to get back to everybody. So I was like, listen, I might not get back to you all the time, but I will get back to you eventually. So I was like,
Yes.
if you ever feel distressed or you want to talk to somebody, just shoot me a message, and when I get a chance, I'll get back to you. So he's like, I've been doing that, just sending you messages has helped me cope with my, like, difficulties. So he was like, I want to thank you
agree.
So
for that.
nice. That's so nice. And, you talk about the importance of self love, and I completely agree. I think if you are so confident in yourself and you know what you're doing is right and you're happy within yourself, it won't affect you what anyone else is saying because
Exactly.
you're so comfortable and you're so happy with it. But if you have any seed of doubt that what you're doing is wrong or shameful, and you put any of these things out, I'm negative, or any negative association with yourself, then the second somebody says something to you, it's going to spark up some
Yeah,
kind of
100%.
insecurity. But how do you both practice self love? Because I think it's a journey people need to come on to. It's not that you wake up one day and you just, love yourself. And I think there's so many different things that go towards that. So how do you both practice that?
um I would start. I think we both are very spiritual. Like, we're not religious, we're both very spiritual. So I think that spirituality
Yeah.
gives you some kind of positivity, but also blissfulness, that you don't let these kind of situations bother you. Other thing is, we both are very outspoken in terms
Hmm.
of our feelings. Me particularly. So, like, I feel like if I'm feeling a certain way and I talk about it, for me that thing is squashed. Like, I don't like putting
Yes.
things under the rug, or like, so I'm quite direct with stuff like that. So I think talking about it, or, like, if you don't have someone to talk to, write about it. I used to, I
Mm.
like writing. So if I don't have Rahul to talk to, I just write in my journal how I feel, whether it's positive or negative, and I make amends with it. And I think
We're so similar. I do the exact same thing.
yeah, and I think the final thing would be, like, expressing yourself, and like, practicing, right? So obviously, like, as Rahul, I'm very sensitive, and that's something, like, sometimes that does cause friction between us because I get sad about any interaction sometimes, like, but
Hmm.
it's like mechanisms, right? Like defense mechanisms you work on.
Yes.
Okay, okay, if this bothered me, why did it bother me? You try to understand your emotions and
Hmm.
see what triggered it. Sometimes, like, it's just like, sometimes it's not just words. It's words can take you back to experience. Words can take back, like, to some kind of, like, anxiety or nervousness, and
Hmm.
then those things further impact, or have a impact to why you reacted a certain way or why you felt a certain way. So I feel like those kind of things being implemented on a regular, it's like it's like going to the gym. You exercise these things, and then it becomes very innate to you in the point where it becomes natural and doesn't bother you anymore. So I would say
Yeah.
those things help me.
Okay.
I well, probably a bit different. I'm not as sensitive. I'm just a bit more like get over it kind of person. Like,
Okay.
move on. But it's good to have that opposite, like the two opposites, because it makes us work. Like, I hate talking about my feelings or anything like around that.
Mm.
Whereas Sushank is very talk about feelings and how you feel and all that.
Yeah.
So it's very good because it makes we both kind of, as they say, opposites attract sometimes. So it makes us kind of use those qualities of each other to pull the other one out of it. So I'm very more like, get over it, whereas Sushank is very talk about it. So I became a bit more like open and start talking about it,
Mhm.
and Sushant has now came a bit more like tougher skin and
Yes.
doesn't take everything to heart. So I think that really helps, and I think self love in terms of being being with a partner that actually truly is kind of your best friend, really helps that self love. I
Yeah,
think it kind of really just kind of completes you as a person. But for me,
sure.
previous to meeting Sushan, was a lot of kind of going on dates and, like, the standard norm that you do as a teenager or in your 20s, that go on dates and kind of meet those people. But going on a lot of dates and being, I wouldn't say rejected, but them not going any more than a first or second date kind of
Mm,
made me much more tougher in my
mm,
skin, and made me kind of more appreciate myself more, and not go for anyone's second best.
yes,
Kind of, you need to go for who you think is right, and kind of have a high expectation, because you are worth quite a lot. And I think that kind of that whole process of doing that kind of made me more aware of that. And yeah.
And
wow,
also, sorry, I forgot to add. I think also goal orientation also
yes,
reflects to yourself. It's not only like attaining like education wise or career wise. I think you have to set goals for yourself too, right? And I'm a
hmm,
full believer of like positivity as well. I'm positive about everything, no matter how the situation is. So I feel like manifestations, positivity, and all those things, like implementing it on yourself for goals. Like we set goals all the time. But I was like, okay, baby steps. I'm like, no, we're gonna go from there because what that's what I see for each other, not here. So I
yeah,
think setting high goals for you too, like
yeah,
characteristics wise, how you see yourself, also helps you reach self love because you see more and more about yourself and you really fall in love with yourself and you're like,
for
wow.
sure.
I tell him all the time, I'm my own favorite person. He was like, you're so narcissistic. I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah,
I love myself, and that will never change. And that's how everyone should be.
I agree. My friend actually went on this course, and she came back and she said to me, "Who do you love the most in the world?" And I said, "Well, my mom and dad." And she was like, "It should be yourself." And that I was like, "Oh, I didn't think of it like that." And she's like, "Yeah, you should love yourself the most in the world, because if you don't love yourself the most, then who will?"
Yeah.
And my
Super.
answer then was my mom and dad too. But
But I think it's very
um,
natural. It's very natural for us to be, when someone asks us that question, you never think of yourself. You always think
never.
the other person that's closest to you, or other
Yeah,
people that are closest to you. And I would probably have said the same. I would have said my mom and dad or my sister. I would never
yeah,
have said myself. But
mm,
I guess it's a journey that people go on to understand
for
loving
sure.
yourself.
Yeah, but that's also a very Indian thing, right? Indian culture is
Very.
very much, it's
Yeah.
about like the family as a whole, as opposed to Western culture is about me. I come
Yes.
first, you
Yes.
know? So I feel like that needs to change too. You can still love your parents, but also love yourself.
For sure.
They're two different entities. And I think Indians, for no matter where we are, we need to accept that too. Like, I can still be a good daughter, but still
Yeah.
marry a white guy if I want to. Like, and still live a happy life. I can still be
Yeah.
a good brother, but still be gay enough to have my own life. But
Yes.
we just need to have those, like you said, conversations need to happen.
Definitely. And Rahul, I know you said your sister. So if my brother is watching this, I also want to include him in that category. He's going to be like, thanks a lot. So we've talked about, these expectations and the negative effects of having these expectations. What can we do to start changing the Indian expectation around gay marriage and gay relationships?
So I think, looking more on the eastern side, India, or Asian countries are definitely working towards that. Uh, Kind of
Mm-hmm.
with new laws and regulations coming in for same-sex marriages, Pride happening, which is a very, very big thing. Pride happening in
Yeah.
a couple of different states in India now. That, I think, they from what I can see as an outsider, they are where we were probably about 10, 15 years ago, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
a progression in the right direction, which is something to be really, really proud of, and kind of are being aware or raising awareness, which is really important and really good,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. There's a lot more that we can do in terms of raising awareness, having platforms like this, where people can kind of express their stories and
Yeah.
express their kind of understanding of it. And I think, yeah, as kind of just really raising awareness, educating more people is kind of the key, that where we need to kind of go towards.
Okay.
I think for me, it'd be two things that I think change will maybe drastically impact everybody. One thing would be starting change in the household by having conversations. Because like you and me had the conversation earlier, right? Like these education has nothing to do with this kind of thing. It's your own home mentality, right? So if you're exposed to homophobic home atmosphere or racist atmosphere or like no, you see women less in your household,
Yes.
you automatically see that as a norm. And as you get older, you have more of that kind of attitude towards all those different things, and it becomes part of you. So for you, that's your normal, and so anything else that's not in that kind of category, you don't accept it or you reject it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the first change should begin. Having these kind of like in your home atmosphere, these discussions should happen as open platform, and then it should be implemented. Okay, like we as a household might see this, but also that's the reality to it too. Because a lot of Indians out, like Val said, they they're like so ignorant. It's like, are you that stupid? Like that like that you, because it's like common sense kind of things, right? But they are like so in their own bubble that they don't even see these
Mm-hmm.
things as normal, and you're
Yes.
like, oh my god, that is so sad. And that's even like Indians in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
Indians in the States, like that mentality is still there. And I think second thing is education, right?
Yes.
So I feel like a lot of bullying happens, especially in school, because a lot of time as a child you spend in school, because there's not enough education, especially sex education,
Agree.
right?
Yes.
And that can not only bring change in terms of sexuality, rape as well,
Mm-hmm.
like parenthood, so many different things. It's
Definitely.
just one conversation to have. And I think lastly I would say is making it, I wouldn't say normal, but making it like making it more accepting in a
Yes.
sense, right? You can change rules and laws, but if people don't want to accept it, what's the point?
Yes.
You know, like it doesn't mean anything,
No, I
because
agree.
if people like don't believe in it, then no matter what the law says, they will still like for instance like the current hate crimes, right,
Yeah.
against homosexuals. This still happen in states, even though states or the UK have so many rules and regulations, but people still commit hate crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we expect countries like India, who's still very new to the legality of these things, be like, you know what, it's a law, guy, so that's it? No, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
So acceptance needs to be implemented as well.
No, definitely. We need to raise more awareness by having these kind of conversations. And I
Right.
really thank you both for sharing that. But before we close, what's the one thing you'd like to change around the Indian expectation on sexuality?
I would say for myself, gender norms.
Yes.
Because I feel like sexuality and gender norms go hand in hand. Once people stop dissociating like certain characteristics, that's what a female should act like, or that's what a man should act like, we can have those change when it comes to sexuality.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing people notice is mannerisms, right? No one notices, oh, you're attracted to a man or a female or whatever.
Yeah.
They see your mannerisms, and they automatically have these predispositions. Not all gays are flamboyant. Not all straight men are macho. There's
Yes.
so many variations, and I feel like that one sort of judgment, which we all Indians have, we judge people instantly, in how people act or dress, and that change in gender norms, I think, would be the first thing I would like to see within the Indian community.
I think it's so true. People associate different characteristics with a man or a woman, and therefore, if you are opposite to that, people then start to say things like, "Oh, that's so gay,"
Yeah,
or "Why are you being a
yeah,
lesbian?" Or these slurs that are said. I think people don't recognize that they really are just exactly what you said, and you put it so well. Is you're generally just attaching some characteristics and the way you are to a
Yeah.
gender norm. You're being a woman or you're being a boy, and if you oppose those things, people will say, "Oh, you're so manly." Are you sure you're straight? Or you're so feminine. Are you sure you're straight? And these things, we they're completely separate. Your gender is separate from your sexuality. And I think that's a really good point. So thank you so much for highlighting that, and thank you both so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so happy we got to have this conversation before you fly off back to New York. But yeah, I'm so grateful for you guys coming. So thank you so much.
I love your podcast. Thank you so much for having us. It's like a dream come true. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, and I hope you get back to New York safely. And Rahul, hopefully see you in
Yes,
London soon.
definitely.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.